So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is a different kind of meeting. It's not necessarily a formal webinar, but we are having Holly Stants here today, who is going to be giving us information on technology, focusing a little bit on younger CHMers, but maybe covering a larger swath of population. So welcome. Just real quick for the audience who will be watching this and for the folks here today, we have a monthly moms chat, and it is for moms to give education and resources and encouragement. And we typically meet the first Thursday of every month. So think about joining us. If you're interested in more information about that, please reach out to the CRF, go to the website, and you can certainly get my address or reach out to Kathy, the executive director. Our schedule's on there as well. And I think that's really about it. Holly, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more?
Sure.
And maybe we'll ask questions at the end, if that's okay with you.
I
Good.
just have,
Right.
I guess,
Thanks.
Thank you very much for having me, Beth. And I do want to just ask one quick question. What is your time frame? You know, if I go to 4:30, is that okay, or is that not okay?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
4:30's, yep, 4:30's fine.
Okay, good. So my name is Holly Stants. I'm an occupational therapist. I've been practicing for 34 years. Always had a passion at low vision. Have some family members. I'm originally from Iowa, grew up near Chicago and moved to Pennsylvania when I was 16. As a child growing up in Chicago, my mother would take me to see her cousin, and I didn't understand as a young child why he was wearing sunglasses playing the piano without music. And she told me he was born blind. He was Liberace's piano tuner. So every time Liberace came to Chicago, they would hire a limo and take him to learn, to get to the piano and get that ready for his performance. And then moving to Pittsburgh, and when I met my husband, my father-in-law, who's since passed, steel worker, Pittsburgh. He was very, very, very good, hardworking man. One day I was in the car after I graduated from Pitt, and he's driving and he's asking his wife, what color is the stoplight? What does the road sign say? And is anyone coming? And I'm in the back seat just wondering if I was going to make it to my next event, realizing that he was experiencing vision loss. I started to go to everything I could possibly learn about vision loss because he had macular degeneration. And I realized that that's not the same thing that your children are faced with. However, it did catapult me into a position of passion. And so I have been passionate for many, many years about vision and trying to understand how people see, how they cope, and different things like that. I do work at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, and it's a wonderful place. I was mentioning earlier that the facility that I work in is called the UPMC Mercy Pavilion, and it's where the Vision Institute is. And I work with a wonderful team of, I have a low vision director, Dr. William Smith, who's absolutely wonderful, and he's a low vision optometrist. We also work here with Dr. Sahel, who is responsible for doing some groundbreaking, research on vision and vision restoration. And I was looking at your website. One of the things that I actually had the opportunity to work on is the PIXIUM study, so we can chat about that in a little bit. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. I will just take a few minutes and talk a little bit about the rehab component, just to make sure everyone knows the pathway, and so that you don't feel that there is that there's not a bridge to where you want to go for your children from here to the next thing that happens in their life. So this is just a little bit of information. This is a global vision for 2020. This is throughout the whole world. They were creating this position that early detection and referral for vision impairment is huge. And it sounds like that's already what you folks are doing with your children, which is absolutely wonderful. I think it's just super important that we're looking as a society that this is something that is starting to become a little bit more in the foreground for all of us. And again, I'm sure that you have had some exposure to some of the things that can happen with vision impairment. And based on your son's or your children's disease processes, typically they will lose the vision at night, and then they will lose peripheral vision. And then sometimes later in life, they will end up having either very, very low acuity or blindness. And so this was just a really interesting picture, because we look at everything with vision. Vision encapsulates every single thing that you ever do. And so that's why it's challenging to understand or to live the vision loss. what's important is what we do, especially in vision rehabilitation, we're looking at the functional vision, what a person has the capacity of their visual system. That's what we look at, and that's how we help people engage with what they have available so that they can continue to do the things that are important to them. And again, you probably have experienced some of these things. Your children may, experience difficulty with color identification, contrast, glare, obviously the reduced visual field. And these things are very, very important to not only identify, but then as you're looking at the environment, how can we make their environment better so that they can engage safer or that they can still engage without having some challenges. So when we talk about all of that, we look at the rehabilitation component and we look at evaluation and intervention. So we're going to just take a moment and talk about that. And then, again, I like to explain this because it's not always clear. When someone does have low vision, we don't always have I wish we had a point A to point B directory, but it doesn't work like that. In our setting and generally speaking, it's very, very, very important to try to get in touch with a low vision optometrist, because they are the experts in helping with diagnosis, but also with helping in getting the correct visual acuity and the ability to prescribe different devices for being able to use the vision that they have. And sometimes there's not very many people like myself that work in low vision. You have a couple different systems, so that's why I have it outlined here, because just in case you're not familiar, there is like the hospital or the medical system, and then there's also the educational system where your children should be introduced to TVIs in the school, and they should also be introduced to O&M specialists so that they're able to learn the orientation mobility training, which is going to be huge for them to be independent with their mobility skills. And so I was the nerd that went back to school later in my life, and I got my master's degree because when I graduated from Pitt, you didn't need to have anything but a bachelor's. So I went back to school and went to UAB in Alabama and got my graduate certificate in low vision. And I also sat for the Academy of Certification Vision Rehab Specialist to become a CLVT. So if you look worldwide, that is a recognizable certification, the ones from ACVREP. In the world, there's probably less than 500 people that have the same credentials that I do. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because it's very difficult to get into a good team system that work with low vision. I'm hoping that the people on the call, that you all have access to a really good healthcare system or a rehabilitative system within the schools so that your children are getting the best that they can possibly get. And this was just a picture to explain all of that. And I'm sure you've probably had some exposure to this, but if you don't know the pathway, it's really good to kind of understand where things come from. And in our situation here where I work, I am in an outpatient clinic, so I'm totally outpatient. But in the school system, you have the TVIs, you have comms, you have BRT, so you have people that will actually do a lot of the great work to get your children into the best capacity that they can achieve. And we're going to talk just a little bit about lighting. So this is also something that's super important, and we will talk a little bit more about this as well when we talk about technology. But if you don't have good lighting and you have a vision impairment, it's really important to look at that in your home. Check out fall risks. Is it because obviously the disease process will cause difficulty with nighttime vision. So then you really want to make sure that things are illuminated well, that they have flashlights, that they have access to light, so that would help them manage what they're trying to see when the lights are not bright. It's huge. It's really important. And the tool that you see on the right is a tool that we use all the time in our clinic to help us help the patient identify what kind of light bulbs are important. And nowadays, just for your own information, there's some really cool bulbs out there now. There's something called the FEIT, F-E-I-T light bulb that you can actually manually change the color, meaning in our world, you have like white, you have 4 or 5 different types of shades of white, and you can get a bulb that you can adjust to your need. So if in the morning you need this kind of light, you can have it this way, and at night, if you want it more of a like the yellowish light, then you can do that as well. And the contrast, again, this is going to be something that I hope everyone is familiar with or has identified, because contrast sensitivity is one of the most important things for safety. when you're talking about mobility, especially in the environment when lighting is different. And I talk about lighting being different on a beautiful sunny day in Florida. You have the sun coming through the trees and then you cause a shade over some of the sidewalks might not be able to be seen because the light has kind of faded them out. So it's really important to know about that and understand if your children or the people that are having this difficulty with their vision are able to engage with, like, is it safe? Are you able to see the step? Are you able to see the last step in the sidewalk? That kind of thing. And even when you have a vision test, even though the acuity might be good on the black and white chart, it's not going to give you a good reading of as far as what their capacity with contrast is. And again, this is just a little overview of all the things that occupational therapists can do when they're trained with low vision skills. And these are some of the things that I do. Again, just some of the things I wanted to share with you. And again, I don't know how many of you are working with low vision therapists, working in a low vision clinic, helping your sons and your children to be able to achieve the best vision that they have at the moment. And these are just some examples of what happens with contrast. So you see the steps on the left. The beautiful cat in the middle belongs to our daughter, so kudos to Luna. But she blends right in with the floor. And so this is, again, a reason that we talk about the contrast sensitivity and how things as simple as a cat could be missed. You might not see that, and then you end up falling down the steps. And then the other one with the carpeting on the wooden steps, if the carpet wasn't there, you might not be able to see from the top step all the way to the landing where the steps are. And this is a really important one here. And I know that most of if the children are not taking medication by themselves, but when you look to the left with the arrow, with the red arrow, you may never find that pill. It blends so much into the countertop. So again, these are just some simple things that we talk about with safety and contrast. So when you're talking about contrast and we're talking about looking at screens, I do all kinds of glare assessments. And I took two pictures just because one of them was taken with the sun on the lenses and one of them was in the clinic on a white background. These are types of glare filters that a lot of times people will end up using as clip-ons or as wraparounds to help with the lighting and the glare. And the lightest one at the bottom sometimes is used when people are looking at screens. And we'll get to that in just a moment about what kind of glare filters you want to use. It's really something that the doctor, the low vision specialist, optometrist, or low vision therapist would work with the patient and the child on, because it's so very, what's the word? It's very sensitive to that person's vision. So each person has their own ability to engage with the glare filter, and sometimes it might be okay and sometimes it might not be. Usually, if a person has sensitivity to looking at a screen, there's a couple things you can do. One of them is changing the contrast in the screen, and the other one is, changing the lighting, or maybe using a type of glare filter, but it would be something that you would want to check out with the provider as well. When I work with folks that have brain injuries and different things, and they're having a lot of headaches, these types of glare filters are they help them tremendously with regard to looking at screens. And again, talking about the contrast sensitivity, these are actually all the different, there's more than this, but these are some of the other different contrast sensitivity glare management devices that we use. Are all clip-ons. And Noir is a company that has a lot of different contrast sensitivity filters. It's NOIR. And Chadwick Optical is another company that has great resources with regard to glare management. So I know that I was asked really to talk about the technology and what's going on and, what can we do? And this is such a very beautiful yet moving fast, swiftly past us topic. And, when we think about technology and we think about a lot of different things, we think about even just being able to go to your phone and make a phone call with your voice. That's huge. Especially if you're having difficulty seeing your phone. So technology is actually becoming something that's going to be more mainstream than we've ever expected. And it has a lot of beautiful things that it can provide to people, but there's always a learning curve for some of us. And, we just have to be patient because some of us didn't grow up with the technology and some of us are learning it as we're, going through school. So again, we look at it simply from what's available right now for us with regard to vision. You have the smartphones coming out. Until it was a year ago in November, for example, one of the apps that I recommend all the time to people was called Seeing AI, and it was only available on the Apple phone, and now it's on Android. And again, that was a huge development, because what it did was we had a group of scientists that came together, and one of them had low vision, and they developed this ability to use the phone camera function into an app that created the OCR functioning, which means you could look at a picture or paper and you could have it described to you, or it could be read to you. And that's huge. And that kind of technology was $500,000 back in the 70s. So it's really amazing that it's free now. And something as simple as using the camera and taking a picture and zooming in and zooming out. These are all things that you're probably very familiar with, but these activities using the camera on the phone are not something that's been around a long time. So the reason I bring that to the discussion is that, in the last 25 years, all of this stuff has bloomed. So when we think about vision impairment, we think about a lot of different things that come along with that. We're living in an era that is just blossoming all over, and we're just really lucky to try to hang on to a lot of the things that are coming down the pike. And again, it's looking at everything. It's not just using your phone. It's looking at how can the environment be made better for us. For those of you who are nerds and love to learn, like myself, I would love nothing better than to come to Florida sometime and go to the ATIA conference in January, because it's just a learning bed of so many different things that are coming out and available to help people. So this was just something I wanted to share. We think about how fast technology is going. So it was, a million years ago was fire, right? And so then 1974, we have the personal computer and the internet. And so where are we going to go in the future? It's hard to know. But there are many beautiful things coming. And I'll share a couple of those things in just a moment here. So when the question is asked about how much screen time should children have, and what kinds of things should we be doing, I wanted to give you some good documentation and some evidence. So and I don't know if obviously this was something you would have to click on, so I don't know if I could share this PowerPoint sometime, but you want to always go back to the professionals that can give you some really good guidance with regard to eyesight. So a lot of times you'll go to the American Academy of Ophthalmology. You can go also to the American Optometry Association. You really want to make sure that you're getting the best information, because I find it interesting whenever the idea of wearing special glasses like the blue blockers and different things for your screen when you're looking at the screen on the computer or your phone. It's interesting that they don't necessarily recommend that that you do that, have special glasses for the computer. But anyhow, so these are some very good strategies, and I'll show you the next one. There's something called the blink method, which is blink, lubricate, inches away, near device breaks, and know your sources. So the Academy does not recommend blue light glasses or any special wear for computer use. So they're referring to the American Association of Pediatric Ophthalmology and Strabismus. What's interesting is when you think about looking at the screen from early on, you really want to be careful with a child that's less than 2 years old. But you also want to know, and no matter what age, you also want to think about how often are you looking at that screen, keeping that very close distance. And are you blinking your eyes? Are you moving your eyes from that short, that distance that's very close, obviously, to a little bit farther away? In our clinic, we also talk about something called the 20-20-20 rule. And means if you're looking at the screen for 20 minutes, you have to, get up, you have to blink, you look away 20 feet, and you have to blink your eyes 20 times just to keep things going, because that tight concentration does become fatiguing to the eye system. So it's important to recognize that. So it's good to talk to your children about that, and recognize that they get involved in something. They're like all of us, we're getting involved in something on the computer. We don't realize 45 minutes have gone past. So even setting timers and even using special, I'm sure that there are special blocks and breaks that you can use on your child's computer so that it's times out and all that kind of thing. So that's what I would recommend, when you're thinking about using the computer or the phone or the laptop or the tablet, just make sure that you can build in some time constraints and talk to your children about that and why that's important. And again, I also look at the American Psychological Association because there's some really good information about, how to keep a hold of the technology, make it, functional for your child, but also don't necessarily let it get away from you. And I think that's important. Times are different now. I was in the store the other day and I couldn't believe how small this child was holding a cell phone. I mean, I come from a different time frame, so it's a little different, but I think we just have to make sure that we're paying attention to how much time the child is looking at the screen, just to make sure that it's not becoming burdensome to the child. And again, these are just some devices that we want to talk a little bit about the high-tech devices that are available for vision. There's a lot of things coming down the pike. These are just a couple of things. We do have an iris vision device in our facility. We also have the Orcam My Eye2 and the Orcam Read. We have a special department in our building, which is called Assist Plus, and we have a gentleman that actually got some grant funding and was able to get the Ray-Ban meta glasses. And I also show on here about the Apple, obviously it can be any type of tablet, but recognizing the tablet capacity, being able to see up close, being able to see the colors brilliantly, being able to do different kind of scanning activities, including some really fun games. That's why the iPad is on there. But I think what's happening, and it's going to even continue to bloom, and I'm sure you might be paying attention to a lot of this anyway, is the fact that something like the Meta glasses is coming out with an additional type of glass where it's going to have like a heads-up display in the lens. And it's my understanding that if you used your app for mobility, and if you have the vision, you obviously have to have enough functional vision to be able to see it. But if you do have the vision that's working yet, you might be able to see the arrow when it's telling you to go down the street, turn right, what have you. So that's interesting. But what's more interesting about the Meta glasses is that it becomes the OCR on your face instead of using the cell phone in your hand and holding it over a document. You can hold something in front of you and it can read to you. The Orcam is a really good product. I know Orcam had come out recently with the ability to use its device along with the computer. So you have like a CCTV effect and you're actually using AI to ask questions of documents and what's in the story and all that. So that is a very interesting tool. I will mention though that sometimes the commands that you have to use on some of the devices, they're not, number one, they're not intuitive. And number two, if you don't always get it right, it sometimes doesn't work. So it's a little bit challenging. The iris vision is a different type of device. And I think we have an older model of that. And what happens is you wear this a virtual headset type of thing, and you're able to see near, intermediate, and distance. And you're also able to kind of do things with your hands. It's not recommended to walk with the device. And I can tell you hands down, one of the most important things when we talk about vision loss is the capacity to remain mobile. And I know that so many organizations, including JR working at NYU, that so many people are working on this type of a situation all the time. They're trying to figure out what's the best way that we can create some kind of a tool to be able to help with navigation. So I know that that's something that's going to continue for a long time. But anyway, these are just some of the things that are out there. And again, everything is moving, and things are going to be coming out even more and more. I wanted to share a couple things, and we'll talk a little bit about at the end about the different resources that I've created or put on a list for you. So for those of you who are liking to listen to podcasts, so first of all, every state in the United States, I hope you know this, but if you don't, I'm going to share it with you. Every state in the United States has something called an Assistive Technology Foundation Fund. And so whether you live in Pennsylvania or New York or Florida, you have access to assistive technology. And the interesting thing about it is, in our state anyway, it doesn't matter what your income is. If you wanted to borrow some money to be able to pay for some assistive technology, It didn't matter whether you had good credit, bad credit, or no credit, and it doesn't matter what your income is, you could borrow the money as long as you paid it back within, I think, 4 years. You can borrow up to $7,000 at like 0 to 2% interest, which is huge. So and the reason I mention that is sometimes you might not know that there's help like that out there. There's also lending libraries in every state, and we'll get to that in just a couple minutes. But back to this oven, when we talk about technology and children and things coming down the pike, you know, occupational therapists spend a lot of time helping others learn about the simple things in life, the assistive, ADLs, the things that you do every day, like cooking and cleaning and all that. So even though, we're working with folks that have vision differences, we want to make sure that they never have a difficulty with things like cooking, right? So Assistive Technology Update just had a podcast last Friday. They come out every Friday. It's a half an hour long show. They're reflecting on the ATIA session this year and the introduction of the Brava oven. And now I know it's not cheap. I looked at the price. I'm like, well, it's like, I don't know, $1,500 or $2,000. But what they have done was they paired up with, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the state's blind association. So in the last year and a half to 2 years, they have actually revamped this whole process where you can actually use your phone using voiceover to be able to control the oven. And the oven is operated by just light bulbs. So it's not like a microwave. It's not like a convection oven. So it gets hot, but it's only on for like a minute. It gets hot, you turn it on and you heat it up for a minute. Then when you shut it off, it takes about 5 minutes or so just to cool down, and then it's at 120 degrees, and then it's cold. And based on the information that I read and I paid attention to online, it seems like it's a very nice idea. It could be very helpful for people, not getting burned and not having the differences in cooking and things that could happen in the future when they're losing their vision. But it's a great product. So this is yet another example of some of the things that we're going to be looking toward. Some other things that are really important. This is a couple of great resources here. The YouTube channel, the Blind Life. The gentleman actually has Stargardt's disease, but he tries a lot of different products and he gives his honest opinion. And it's just very, very helpful. Again, these are just some things that you may not be aware of that could be very helpful to you if you're thinking about a product and you're saying, well, I don't know, that's $3,000 or whatever. This guy, and I'm sorry, I can't remember his first name. He may have tried some of these things and he does a real good commentary on those as well. Navigation strategies with technology. There is something called the Smart Cane. We don't have one here, so I can't really speak to how good or how, if it works for everyone or not, but it is, again, another idea of the technology. And Human Guide is the opposite, where it's something that you should probably know about. If you're not familiar with it, it's a way to help those of your family members that don't have the ability to see, in order to, especially navigating in the evening when the light, they're not able to see. This is just a really good activity where you can have them walk alongside of you, and you are the guide and you're helping them manage the site. For the technology, so some of the things we want to talk about are, when you're looking at apps, first of all, how do we know what app's going to be good? We don't, how do we look at the glare? Can we eliminate glare on the iPad? Yes, you can. You can go into settings and change some different things. You want to make sure that the child is positioned in a good space so that they don't have any ergonomic considerations. They're comfortable and they're not hurting their back or their neck. And you want to always watch for fatigue. And again, I would go back to using a time situation where you have 5 minutes of this and then you stop it, make it fun. Those are always important things to think about. Use pictures if they're able to see them. It help describe what they're doing. And again, I'm not sure what everybody's capacity is here, so I did just take a couple minutes to show you, and just on the iPad. If you're not using voiceover, you can use something called spoken content, where you can actually have everything on the screen read, or just one thing if you're pointing to it. And then when we think about the big picture of a child going from preschool to grade school to middle school to high school, we always want to make sure that the opportunities exist, that you're familiar with what's available with computers, and obviously working with the school system with TVIs and orientation mobility instructors. But in case you're not familiar with some of the software that's out there, there's all kinds of things. There's JAWS, Zoom Text Fusion. There's an organization called Computers for the Blind. There's also World Services for the Blind, NVDA versus JAWS. And again, if I'm looking at this as a clinician, but as a parent or family member, it's a bit daunting and overwhelming to identify where you need to get assistance, or how do you find an assistive technology specialist when your child is now graduated from high school and they're going to college. How do we make sure that we have everything lined up so that they're able to make that transition from being a child at home to an independent living in a dormitory situation. So it's a lot of really good stuff to think about, and it's really good to know where this support may come from in those cases. Again, you want to think about how would you set up a computer for low vision? Again, the Blind Life YouTube video is great. It talks about step by step. And the American Foundation for the Blind also has very good information about how to manage the computer access. And Microsoft, another thing that I found very recently is it's interesting that we do have the programs like Zoom Text and JAWS and Fusion, which will always be a special place in the market. But also, as things move forward, we're having these organizations like Microsoft try to create additional supports within their own system so that when you purchase a computer, you would have all that already built in. And I think it's really good to keep checking in on things. And a lot of times these organizations have access support, so you can actually reach out to them and ask questions. I know Apple has an 800 number that's available 24/7 if you needed any assistance with regard to using an Apple device. So it's good to be very familiar with these kinds of things. Again, just giving you some examples of where you can get assistance if you wanted to set up a computer. And also they give you ideas of how to navigate and make the computer work best for you with your vision situation. Again, Computers for the Blind, that's a whole organization that does create, at a low cost, they will build computers for you. Again, I'm not sure how much all of this information you may or may not know, but I'm very passionate about helping people get connected, because the one thing that I've learned working in the low vision clinic and working in this field is so many times, if you've not had exposure to different things and the community does not really understand low vision, you kind of feel like you're outside and you don't necessarily belong in the community. So I really don't think that we need to have that anymore. I think we just have to be able to give connectivity and bridge the information so that everyone has access, and that there's a way to keep engaged with everything that you want to do. And again, for kids or anyone, we use some of these scanning activities just to help our patients when they're not necessarily reading as well and they want to do something kind of fun. It's amazing some of the things that the different apps will bring out and people. So this is just one that's on the iPad. It's called Number Touch, and you can have balloons of different colors or the same color, and they have to do things in order. And then another thing is called just this classic scanning activity where you can make the numbers really big or very small. And I just wanted to share this picture. So on the left-hand side, just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that we do in our clinic, that's a Dynavision device, and it's developed many years ago by a gentleman that was playing football for the Canadian League. I actually met him. He wanted to improve eye-hand coordination. So what we do with this is just for scanning to make sure a person's able to see, and then we translate that into working in some different environments and making sure that they're scanning a little bit better. And on the right side, we do have another type of device. It's called the BITS. It's made by Bioness, and it's actually like a 50-some-inch screen. And you can get really close and you can actually scan for different things. Many, many different programs we have on that, including programs that have one or two items themselves, and then you have to find those items. And just for some information about some of the computer work and the electronic magnification, in case you haven't seen these types of devices, On the left is a machine that actually you can roll over the paper and you can make it larger with like a rolling scroll. And the one in the middle has the ability to actually have a line guide on it, or a reading support where you can actually keep looking with that red line. You're able to keep where you're at. And then always on the right, it was the Zoom text example. And these are just some. On the left, you have 3 different types of magnifiers, and one of them you're able to pinch the screen just like a cell phone. And the thing that's important about that is you can change all kinds of backgrounds to help, depending on the vision that the child has. You can make the contrast better or worse, depending on what they, not worse, but you can enhance the contrast and cut down the glare. You can do those kinds of things with the device. And again, this is just another example of the machine. And on the right, you can see how if we needed to help with minimizing the clutter on the screen, or we just wanted to really just have like a typoscope effect where you're just looking for 1 or 2 words at a time, we could actually make the device come out like that. We talked a little bit about the Seeing AI app. I encourage you, if you don't have it, to download it and really give it a try. It's really a very helpful application, and it can read things to you, and you can practice with it where you can actually ask questions to see if something's in the room. You open the refrigerator, you take a picture, you ask, where's the ketchup, and it would give you some idea where it's located. And then obviously that's for Apple. And then we have for Android, this is called Lookout. And again, I'm not sure if everyone knows about it, but it is available on Android. And so we're going to get to the point of the resources. Again, going back to the assistive technology, just to make sure that everybody has awareness of it, it's called the AT3 Center, and it will give you a listing of all the assistive technology or your central located in your state, your assistive technology foundation. You want to, all the things that they have available. They have all kinds of collaborations. And this has not been around for a long time. I believe it's only like 25 or 30 years, maybe, not even that long. So again, that's why I mention it. Sometimes we wouldn't know about these things unless we're involved in an organization that encourages education and commitment to connectivity to resources. And I just give an example of our foundation in the state of Pennsylvania. So if you look up your own state, you'll find some information about how, they're working towards helping people with different needs. I did actually talk many times to PATF because I didn't really understand, like, what could you really get with the foundation money if you needed to borrow money. And they consider technology, just so you know, it's very important to consider technology on a continuum. And they explained to me that they had one family that actually borrowed the money to be able to fence in their backyard because their child had special needs. It was behavioral related, and it didn't have anything else to do with anything that why we would not consider someone borrowing money to build a fence being something that the state would be able to help them with, but it is. So, don't ever think about not turning the stone over to see what might be under it, because there could be things that you're not familiar with that you might have a lot of help with. And again, this is just, the Tech Owl is a program out of a college at Temple University in Pennsylvania. And so when I was mentioning about borrowing equipment, this is something that we do recommend sometimes to our patients. It's a lending library that you can borrow, like the high-tech stuff, and you just have to send it back within a month, and it's free to the people in Pennsylvania. The only caveat to that is if you have a really cool device like the OrCam and you want to borrow it, you might be waiting for 6 months to a year because there's only 1 or 2 of them and people get to borrow it for a whole month. So that's something just to consider. Again, these are 2 of my very favorite resources. Assistive technology at Easter Seals is the program that I was mentioning with regard to assistive technology update and the assistive technology podcast that I listen to. You can actually ask them questions and they'll email back to you, and you can actually call in and ask questions about devices or things that you want to know about. It's very, very, very helpful, and it's very informative. And then the other one is Bridging Apps. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that organization, but they are also supported by Easter Seals. So both of these organizations are supported by Easter Seals. And the Bridging Apps is beautiful because you can actually put in there, like if you're looking for apps that help with, if you're visually impaired, or if you're having difficulty keeping on task, or you need reminders. The people that work on that organization have vetted the app. So you have teachers, therapists, other professionals, as well as parents that are looking at the apps individually, so they can really get you some buy-in of how, whether or not that's a good app. And also most of them are free. So a lot of the apps that we have on our iPad in our program here at the Eye Center, we have actually downloaded from looking at this particular Bridging Apps organization. So it's, again, something that I wanted to share because these are really, you can touch them today. They're really good resources. And then, of course, I would highly recommend, if you have the opportunity and you want to go to Florida in January, of all times, a great time to go. This is something that comes out every year, and you can actually go up and look on their website and see what's been presented, and you might be able to have some access to the information that they have. So I think that's important. And again, the next couple of pages are just a lot of resources. I'm not sure if every state has bold, but I think that's another something that was very important to me to share with you today, is a way to engage in outdoor leisure activities. So like our state has golfing, our state has, I'm trying to say swimming, it's not swimming, skiing, and other activities that they engage in. And it's really a great place for people that have vision differences to be able to connect and then be able to stay active in different things. And then again, the American Academy of Ophthalmology, occupational therapy, the Vision Council, Assistive Technology Act, being able to access all of this stuff for advocacy is going to be really important. And again, obviously, the American Foundation for the Blind, NLS, looking at font sizes for print, recognizing how big the print might need to be. And I just want to take one more minute to share, because I want to be able to answer questions, is, why is this so important? I can tell you with 100% certainty that I really believe that being able to know what's available, and you already know what vision change is going to happen or what might happen, but being able to encourage and participate and grow and learn and recognize that vision loss really stinks. I can't even imagine. I know that a long time ago we had to read an article when I was in grad school about vision loss, and and especially in my business, people are much more afraid of having vision loss than they are having cancer. I can't speak to vision loss, like I haven't experienced it, but I can speak to hearing impairment, and I know it's not the same thing. But what I want to encourage every single person on the call is that there is always hope. You don't have to feel that you're disconnected, because even though we might not be able to do the things the way we've always done them, there are so many things that will keep empowering each and every one of you and your children to recognize the place that you have at the table, to be able to do whatever you wish to do. And I think that's the biggest challenge that I see. And again, I know that most of you are already connected with low vision providers, but the biggest challenge that I see is most people don't even know what low vision rehabilitation is, nor do they know how to get in touch with it. And I think it's so important to really keep asking questions, and I know you're not afraid to ask questions, but a lot of times people don't know what to ask. But it's really good to just keep very involved with a lot of great connections. And for example, this discussion today and this organization that you're already part of is wonderful. I looked at their online, the things that are online for your organization. I was just very amazed. And I just really think that that's the best place to start, and to keep having these conversations, get people on and talk and share information, and recognize that the best things to do is keep asking the question. It's so very, very important. Anyway, I've taken up enough time just chatting. I just want to let you know that I'm very honored to be here. And I hope that some of the technology that I presented will help some of the questions you might have. And I'm sure there's even more things that you want to know about. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
This was wonderful. It was really, really important. It had so many resources. I'm sure there's going to be people here that would like to ask questions. So who wants to start?
Well, first of all, I can't even tell you, I'm so blown away. I had never heard of low vision rehabilitation, was not aware of really very much of what you've shared. And I just want to thank Beth and you for putting this together and having such a heart and passion for this. And I'm glad it's recorded because I'm anxious for my other son to listen to it. And I want to replay it for my son who is with me here today. So I just can't say thank you enough.
Oh, that really means a lot to me, Rosalind. Like I said, I come to work every day. I'm here very early because I have passion about a lot of things and I'm involved in a lot of things. But the most important thing that I can share is hope. There's no reason not to have hope because, there's always something, something is what I don't even call it simple anymore, but like being able to operate your lights from a phone without having to get up and go walk across the room and shut them off, or being able to cook with an app that you can use voiceover on so that your food is okay and you don't have to worry about getting burned, and knowing so many different avenues that are available to you. It's amazing to me, and I'm just very blessed to be able to be in this position to share this information for sure.
Holly, I had a question about one of the early slides that you showed on the types of providers, like the COMS and the CLVT and the CVRT. How do we understand the differences between those types of roles, and like who is an expert in what? What are the kind of nuances that separate them?
That's a beautiful question, and I'm glad you asked because with regard to the ACVREP, I am on the committee for CLVT as a subject matter expert. And the thing that's the most important thing is that when your child is in a school system, they should have access to TVI, which is the teacher of the visually impaired. Okay, they absolutely should have access to that. And they should have access to a COMS, which is what they call them COMS, which is a certified orientation mobility specialist. So that's the person that's going to use the white cane and teach the child how to use the white cane and navigate. Now the VRT, that's a little bit different. So the VRT, which is a beautiful, it's a vision rehabilitation therapist. So the caveat here is that OT does a little bit of what similar things that the VRT does, but the VRT is someone who is board certified and they have taken courses that actually also work with blindness. So they teach Braille, they teach blind task completion, including cooking and home management and doing all kinds of organizing and doing all kinds of labeling and all of the things that you would hopefully be able to have your child learn if they became blind, right? So that and the reason I put all that in was because I wasn't sure how much the group knows. So you have a couple systems. You have the medical system where I work, and then you have like the educational / school system, or which is like the orientation mobility specialist, the CVRT, the TVI, and the COMS. So what you want to make sure of is that when your child is in the school system, that you're having the IEP, that it's directed at how the child can learn with special, attention to vision changes, whether your child needs large print, whether they need, glare reduction, whether they need an environment where there's not too much lighting, but there's enough bold letters. All of that stuff should be taken care of in an IEP. And if you're not having that, you really need to, go to the school and say, look, my child has this is what we need. We have to have this. My big concern is because I've run across this a few times when you have a child that's in a higher grade, like for, getting ready to graduate to go to college, all of that kind of changes because the schools that you might be looking at, you want to really, really, really look at what the college or university has available in their assistive, capacity. You want to make sure that they have things that will help your child. If they don't, I mean, I know there's a couple of really good schools in the United States. I think one of them is Ball University in Indiana. And I don't want, I'm not trying to advertise for anyone. I'm just giving you information. But that to me would be number one. If I had a child that had vision impairment, I would be wanting to ask, okay, what happens in the transition year from high school to life? What kind of support are they going to get? Because things change. Because when you're in the school system, they're required by the government, not the government, but they're required by the school district. There's certain things that they have to meet, and you really want to pay attention to that because you don't want to get in a situation where now you feel like you're free fall, right? You want to have a connected bridge so that you continue that child's success. And I say all that because, unfortunately, which I don't know if you bring this up in the future or not, but there so many people don't necessarily get that support, and then that therefore when it comes to employment, it's very difficult. So you have state agencies like OVR, which is Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. You have agencies that will help kind of bridge so that you get some funding or you get some resources where you could get some help when you're trying to get a job, and maybe an office or something would provide accessibility like with JAWS or something on the computer. But these are all things you really want to make sure of that you're getting access to, and you don't want to just you don't want to get blindsided by it. You want to be able to be proactive. So that's why I said it's so very valuable to be able to be in an organization that brings on speakers and talks to you about all these things, because it can be daunting, really can be.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And feel free anytime with my email up there, if someone has a question that they can't think of right now, or they're concerned about something and, they have anything in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
I will.
Another question?
Sure.
I'm just going to copy Beth and take a picture of this.
I was going to ask Holly, are you able to share your slide deck with us? There's so many things packed in this. And as I was listening, I have a 27 and a 32-year-old, and I'm thinking, man, I'll send this to them, when the time is right, and maybe now. Is there a way that we could get this out to our members?
Yeah, so the only problem that I have is that it's a firewall, right? So I would have to try to recreate. I could probably send it as a PDF. I just know that as a PowerPoint, I probably can't send it because of the firewall. Let me try to figure out how I can do that best. Because it's funny. Usually, what I end up doing is I have a 26-year-old daughter that's really techie, and I end up doing a lot of stuff on her computer. Then I can send it. But if I'm on UPMC, I can't do that because of the firewall. So I'll try to figure out what the best way I can get it to you. And maybe it might just be a PDF if that's okay.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Because like I said, there's just so many institutions. There's there's a lady that has her own webpage. It's for teachers of the visually impaired students, and she has all kinds of great ideas. And this is where she compares the font size and how you can look at things. So there, I mean, like I said, it's endless. When you start getting into this, you find all these different pathways. But I think the most important thing, at least what I see and what I want to encourage, is that make sure the school system is keeping up with what your child needs. Make sure that what's out there with technology, even like I said, even with the meta glasses. Make sure that you try to, if you have time, listen to some of the podcasts, because the thing about these tech acts, they have funding, and hopefully that doesn't change, but they have funding, and especially the one that I listened to from Easter Seals out of the state of Indiana. It's phenomenal. You can go on and you can participate in webinars. You can watch it afterwards. If you need credit for it, you can get it if you're listening to it live. But they're very, very helpful because they are funded to try to keeping information available to people. And that's just, to me, that's absolutely huge. You know, it's really sad that I didn't really learn about the assistive technology stuff until I got hired here 12 years ago. And to me, like, we should have a running list of the things like that are available to us in our state. Like when we go to vote or something, there should be a paper that says, look, you know, you have all of this, you know, you shouldn't have to dig, you know. But anyway, that's why I think it's important to have all these kinds of talks.
Oh, it certainly is. And I know that our executive director will take a look at this, and boy, it would be great to even have you possibly come to the conference
Yes.
in June of this year.
Yes, 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 all of the above.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's your conference at?
It's going to be in Minneapolis,
Oh,
June
Minneapolis.
26th through the 28th. Yeah,
Is it always the same place or is it different every year?
it's different every year. And for the folks that don't know this, probably on the call, you are an associate or a colleague of J.R. Rizzo, Dr. J.R. Rizzo,
Yes.
John Ross Rizzo.
Yeah.
He's on our board of directors, and
Okay.
he has CHM, and he's just an amazing individual.
Yes.
100%. But this is really good, and it's better than good, because you nailed it on the head. It is hope, and it's resources, and there's so many tools that will make life easier. It will give people the opportunity to continue a quality life. It's not ending, and you still can flourish.
Yeah. 100%.
And adapt.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the you know, the big thing. I think when you have vision impairment, you may not recognize this, but you're far ahead of the rest of us that are aging, that have, you know, all of these changes that are happening anyway to us, but you're already leading the charge by saying, look, I'm adapting every day, all the time. You know, so it's all of us go through adaptation every day, but when you have a change in vision or hearing or capacity with mobility, you know, it's more apparent right at that moment, right? But I think what we want to hold on to is the fact that the capacity where you have agency, you know, you can do many, many things without sight. And I think it's hard, you know, it's a really hard thing to think about and get your, you know, head wrapped around, but just the capacity that I see and the hope. And like I said, when my father-in-law was diagnosed with macular degeneration, none of this was existent. I mean, he's passed away now, but none of this, you know, you have talking, measuring tools. If you want to, you know, want to create something in the workshop, you have all of this stuff that is so wonderful. You know, in our area, there's, you know, special things that, you know, like I said, the Bold is a great organization to get kids involved in, you know, because I listened to, I can't remember the gentleman's name because he was on one of the podcasts, but there was a couple of folks that were blind, and they were, oh, you know what it was? It was about finances. That's what it was. It was a beautiful podcast on the same program that I listened to, but it was about finances for people with low vision, but they were both blind. And one guy was this fabulous athlete. And so my point here is we always want to have the bridge open. We don't want the gate to be closed. And so by giving opportunity and expressing the options, like this whole thing about finances, who thinks about finances? You know, between, like, I brought up the cooking thing because that's huge. To me, as an occupational therapist, I want people to be safe, not falling. I want them to be able to make their meals, take care of their medications, all of this stuff, to be safe in their home. Right. And so finances is part of that, right? And health management. How do we know that we're taking good care of our health when we don't see as well as we did? So all of that stuff, it's huge. But anyhow, I don't want to take too much time up, but if anyone has any more questions, I'm more than happy to answer. And again, I'm very thankful to JR. Such a, you know, we're so blessed to be able to work on some teams together. So I hope this did not disappoint anyone. I don't know what technology,
No,
you know, things are.
no, this is great. This is fabulous. Anybody else have questions?
I just want to reiterate how fabulous it is.
Oh,
It's not what I expected, but it's so much more.
okay.
And so I just totally vote for you coming to Minnesota with us.
Mom,
I'll have to get some details.
We'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anybody else?
Mom, may I say something to that group? If they'll have me?
Okay, my son would like to say something. He has
Sure.
leukemia, and
Sure.
he's
Sure.
With this, the white cane, I've had people kick it. I've experienced that. I've done that too. When my eyes was better, so I've experienced, got back in threefold what I did when I kicked something like this. But you know, all the technology that I have, the iPhone, the headset, the white cane, the magnifiers, I'm just grateful for people like you and you all you ladies that care and that are doing this. This makes me feel hopeful. And I just wanted to let you know, as someone that has it, I don't feel like giving up.
Oh, thank you very much. You just made my day.
Thank you, Matthew.
You're welcome.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
That was wonderful. What a great way to end our session.
Absolutely, for sure.
All right, Holly, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will be in touch for sure.
Absolutely.
And thank you for taking the time out of your day to chat with us. And this will be going out to several thousand people. So
Wow. Okay.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks
Thank
so
you
much.
all.
Have a great day, everybody.
Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You, Beth, for putting this together.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Beth.
Appreciate.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thanks, Rosalind. Appreciate your
Welcome.
kindness.